Joining us now, senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and former Department of State Arab-Israeli negotiator, Aaron David Miller. So, Aaron, I don't think we've talked at a moment as it feels like an inflection point. It feels like we're at a real inflection point right now. And I think that it's fair to say a lot of the credit is due to Jose Andres and the reputation that he's garnered around the world, the goodwill he's garnered, and also the influence he has within Washington, D.C.
I mean, it was a tragedy, and it was completely unnecessary. There's no doubt about that. And yes, everything you said about Jose Andres is absolutely the case. I would only point out something that is all too obvious, that basically we're in the 6th month of this war. We've seen thousands upon thousands of Palestinians, innocents, killed, an exponential increase in Palestinian casualties, and a humanitarian catastrophe, catastrophic starvation, even real reports of the possibility of famine soon. And yet it took this. It's a commentary, Katie, I think. Enough said about that. I don't know, inflection point. You know, red lines with respect to Israel have a way of turning pink. And there's no doubt that this was a tough 30-minute conversation. It was clearly very carefully scripted. The White House statement you posted used extremely specific language. I don't know if they used the term reassessment. That is a special term of art in the U.S.-Israel relationship. Kissinger threatened to do it in 1975 if then Prime Minister Rabin wouldn't sign the second Sinai disengagement agreement with Egypt. The real question, though, is, again, is this words over deeds, or is the administration serious about imposing significant costs and consequences that you and I would, normal humans, would consider as real pressure? Seems to be two areas. One, Israel needs to lighten up, to say the least, and make facilitating humanitarian assistance into Gaza. And there are several ways the Israelis could easily do that. Then a second issue, second sort of red line, even though that wasn't referred to as a red line, is can you hurry up and do a hostage deal, a hostage for prisoner deal with Hamas? That's going to be trickier, I suspect, given the issues that are at stake. And remember, this conflict is not one hand clapping. There's another party to this conflict, a vicious terrorist organization that is holding and abusing, I might add, hostages, including 6 Americans. And what impact that's going to have on Hamas's negotiating posture, the fact that the administration is somehow threatening to reassess, is unclear. I think there's a way to facilitate, to diffuse this for the good of everyone concerned, but I think it's going to be an extremely rocky road for U.S.-Israeli relations in the days and weeks to come.
You mentioned using the term reassess and how that has specific definitions in diplomacy. That term is not in this statement. I'll read you the pertinent point word for word. He made clear that U.S. policy with respect to Gaza will be determined by our assessment of Israel's immediate action on these steps. So you're not getting the word reassess. You're getting determined.
Whoever drafted that statement, I suspect, knows a fair amount of history about the nature of the U.S.-Israel relationship. Still, assessment with a view toward the conclusion, which is using the leverage that the administration has had from the beginning. Slow walk condition, restrict U.S. military assistance, introduce UN Security Council resolutions, or abstain or vote for others who introduce resolutions that are critical of Israel, and finally, abandon the issue of Israeli-Hamas negotiations entirely and simply press the Israelis for an immediate cessation of hostilities. The president does use the word immediate ceasefire, but I think it's quite clear that there won't be, cannot be, nor can the U.S. enforce one unless the other party to this negotiation comes through with what they need to do, which is to release hostages and agree to de-escalate the conflict.
Aaron, I think a lot of people think that this is a relatively simple calculus for this administration. Just take away the weapons that Israel is using against Gaza. Don't supply them with the bombs. Don't supply them with the fighter jets, et cetera. But the wrinkle here that I think maybe is not as fully appreciated is that arming Israel is a deterrence to Iran, which is saber-rattling right now quite aggressively. It's a deterrence to Hezbollah and to other actors in the region that don't want Israel to be there.
This president has shied away from it in large part because I think of his emotional commitment. He said repeatedly, implied and almost stated that the issue of denying Israel weaponry, although he caveated that by saying defensive weaponry. But look at the sales that have already gone through in the last several weeks. The administration twice has bypassed Congress in order to facilitate the delivery of military equipment to Israel. So I think your point, though, is right about the possibility of an escalation along the Israeli-Lebanese border and what signal Hezbollah Iran would draw from the fact that the U.S. Would do something it's never done before. It's delayed the delivery of equipment under the Reagan administration at least twice. But they seem to be implying that if, in fact, the Israelis don't fall into line, that this assessment of U.S. policy going forward is going to be quite critical and quite consequential. It's still hard for me to believe that the administration is prepared to cut off and or restrict military equipment to Israel, particularly now that the Iranian-Israeli Hezbollah equation could easily break out.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation, but it does seem pretty clear that something does need to happen given the situation in Gaza. It is just completely untenable, outrageous, some would say. Aaron David Miller, really good to have you. Thank you as always.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.